right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive. And today we're going to be taking a look at something pretty wild.
Yeah, we're talking about neuromorphic computing. We're going to break down exactly what that means and why it's going to be such a big deal in the future.
Neuromorphic computing. It's about ditching the old rule book of computers and turning to something truly revolutionary. We're talking about building computers that think more like us humans.
Yeah, that's the idea. Instead of relying on the traditional way of processing information bit by bit, neuromorphic computing draws inspiration from the incredible parallel processing power of the human brain.
Basically, we're talking about cramming the power of a supercomputer into something as efficient and adaptable as our own brains.
You got it.
Yeah.
And at the forefront of this revolution is a company called Dynex. They're doing some truly groundbreaking work in this field.
Yeah, Dynex really caught our attention. They've got this platform that's trying to make neuromorphic computing a reality, and they're not just talking about theory, they're actually building it. And at the heart of it all are these things called memristors.
Yeah, memristors are pretty fascinating. Think of them like tiny electrical components that can remember their electrical history. They're like the building blocks of artificial neurons.
So these memristors, they're not just processing information like a traditional computer chip. They're actually learning and adapting as they go.
Precisely. They can actually change their resistance based on the electrical signals they've been exposed to. Kind of like how our brains form connections and learn from experiences.
Okay, so we've got these brain-inspired chips, but it gets even weirder. Dynex is using something called self-organizing logic. It almost sounds too sci-fi to be real.
It does sound like something straight out of a movie, but it's a very real and incredibly powerful concept.
So how does this self-organizing logic actually work? Give us the breakdown.
Well, imagine you're trying to factor a really large number. Instead of brute forcing it with calculations like a traditional computer, a neuromorphic chip with self-organizing logic works backward.
Backward? How do you even do math backward?
It starts with the product, the big number, and lets the memristor network organically settle into the solution, those prime factors.
So instead of crunching numbers, it's more like guiding the network to the answer almost intuitively.
Exactly. And because of this unique approach, it can find solutions much faster than traditional algorithms, especially for really complex problems.
So it's not just about mimicking the structure of the brain, but it's about replicating the way the brain actually solves problems.
And that's where instantons come into play. Now, this is where it gets a little mind-bendy.
Instantons? That sounds like something out of theoretical physics.
It is. Imagine you've got a ball rolling on a bumpy surface. An instanton is like if that ball suddenly teleported from one valley to another, skipping over the slow uphill climb in between. In the Dynex chip, these instantons are sudden shifts in the circuit state triggered by electrical signals, and they allow it to skip over tons of unnecessary calculations.
It's like the chip is finding shortcuts to the solution, kind of like quantum tunneling, but with electricity instead of subatomic particles.
You got it. And because of that, Dynex can be built with existing technology. It doesn't need the crazy conditions of a quantum computer.
So we're talking about potentially achieving quantum-like speeds without needing to build a quantum computer. That's a game changer.
Absolutely. And it's this unique combination of memristors, self-organizing logic, and instantons that allows Dynex to tackle problems that would bring even the most powerful supercomputers to their knees.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think it's time we address the elephant in the room.
You mean the fact that this all sounds incredibly complex and theoretical?
Exactly. We've got these incredible brain-inspired chips that can supposedly solve problems faster and more efficiently than anything we've ever seen before. But how does this actually translate to the real world? What are the practical applications of all this mind-blowing technology? That's the million-dollar question, right? We can talk about all this incredible tech, but at the end of the day, it's got to have real-world impact. So where does Dynex really shine? Where are we going to see this tech making a difference?
Well, one of the most exciting things about Dynex is that they've actually created a platform called Dynex Solve that allows anyone to tap into the power of their neuromorphic chips.
Okay, so it's not just some research project hidden away in a lab. It's actually accessible.
Exactly. And here's the really cool part. Dynex Solve uses a proof-of-useful work model. So instead of miners just churning through useless computations to generate tokens like they do with some cryptocurrencies, they're actually contributing to solving real-world problems.
So they're actually doing something useful with all that computing power. I like it. But what kind of problems are we talking about here?
We're talking about some seriously heavy-duty stuff. Things like AI development, drug discovery materials, science, even financial modeling. Problems that would take traditional computers years or even decades to solve.
Hold on a second. Financial modeling, you're telling me this thing can predict the stock market?
Well, not quite.
Hmm.
But it can definitely help analyze financial data and identify trends much faster and more accurately than anything we've seen before. It could revolutionize the way we invest and manage risk.
Now that's what I'm talking about. But let's break this down a bit further. How does Dynex Solve actually work? What makes it so good at tackling these complex problems?
One word. Optimization Dynex Solve is specifically designed to excel at a certain type of computational problem called Ising and QUBO models.
Okay, time for a quick knowledge check. Ising and QUBO models. What are we talking about here?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to plan the most efficient delivery route for a fleet of trucks, or figure out the optimal way to schedule a factory's production line. These are optimization problems, and they get really complicated really fast.
I can imagine there are tons of different variables and possibilities to consider.
Exactly. And that's where IDing and QUBO models come in. They're basically mathematical frameworks for representing these incredibly complex optimization problems in a way that computers can understand and solve. And get this, Dynex is claiming they can handle these models even better than quantum computers.
Whoa. Okay, now that's a bold statement. Quantum computers are supposed to be the next big thing in computing.
They are promising. I'll give you that. But quantum computing is still in its early stages. It's incredibly expensive, requires very specific and difficult to maintain conditions like ultra-low temperatures, and the technology just isn't quite there yet to make it practical for widespread use.
So Dynex is sort of like a bridge between traditional computing and the quantum future.
Exactly. It offers a way to achieve similar computational feats as quantum computers, but with existing technology that's far more accessible and affordable. It's a game changer for making this kind of computing power available to a much wider range of researchers and industries.
This is all starting to make sense now, but let's talk about the elephant in the room again, security.
Ah, yes, security. That's a big one. And rightfully so. We're talking about incredibly powerful technology with the potential to access and process highly sensitive data.
Exactly. We've got to make sure this technology doesn't end up in the wrong hands or get used for nefarious purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Dynex understands this. They've taken security incredibly seriously. Their platform uses something called AES-256 encryption for all data transmission.
AES-256. That sounds pretty intense. Break it down for us. What makes this encryption so special?
Think of it like this. AES-256 is the gold standard of encryption. It's used by governments and military organizations worldwide to protect their most sensitive information. It would take a supercomputer billions of years to crack this encryption, so you can rest assured that any data processed by Dynex is as secure as it gets.
Okay, that's reassuring. But what about the data itself? Where is it actually stored while all these complex computations are happening?
That's another area where Dynex has gone above and beyond to ensure data security. One of their core principles is that customer data never actually leaves their premises.
Wait, really? So if I'm a researcher submitting a complex problem to Dynex Solve, my data never actually goes to their data center?
You got it. Here's how it works. Dynex's software takes your computational problem, whatever it may be, and transforms it into an abstract representation called a quantum circuit. This circuit is then encrypted with that Fort Knox level AES-256 encryption we talked about and sent to the Dynex data center.
So the Dynex computers are working on this encrypted representation of my problem, not the raw data itself.
You're catching on. And once the computations are finished, the results are encrypted again and sent back to your system where you can decrypt them and make sense of the output.
That's a really clever approach to data security. It seems like they've thought of everything. But there's always that question in the back of my mind. What about the potential for misuse? Any technology this powerful can be a double-edged sword.
I hear you. It's a question we have to ask with any transformative technology. But here's the thing. Dynex isn't just throwing this technology out into the world without any safeguards. They've established something called the Dynex Moonshots Ethical Committee.
Okay, an ethics committee. That's a good start. But what exactly do they do? Do they have any real power to influence how this technology is used?
They're not just a figurehead. They have teeth. Their role is to review any proposed projects or applications of Dynex's technology that might raise ethical concerns. If a project is deemed potentially harmful or misused, this committee has the power to shut it down. They have a lot of sway within Dynex. They could basically pump the brakes on any project that doesn't align with their ethical guidelines. It's a crucial layer of oversight for a technology this powerful.
That does make me feel a lot better. It sounds like Dynex is really committed to responsible innovation. But let's shift gears a bit. We've Talked a lot about the technical and ethical sides of things, but what about the economics? This whole platform runs on DNX tokens, right?
Right. DNX is the fuel that keeps the Dynex ecosystem going.
So how does it all work? How do people actually earn these DNX tokens? It's not just about mining them like Bitcoin, is it?
It's a little more nuanced than that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how we talked about Dynex Solve and the proof of useful work model? Well, that's how miners earn their DNX, by contributing their computing power to solving those real-world problems.
So it's like a reward system for using their hardware for good.
Exactly. The more complex the problem they solve, the more DNX they earn. And it's not just about individual calculations either. Miners also get rewarded for securing the entire network by adding new blocks to the blockchain, just like with other proof-of-work cryptocurrency.
Right, that makes sense. But here's a question. What happens when all the DNX tokens have been mined? Does the whole system just grind to a halt?
That's a great question, and it's something that other blockchain projects have grappled with. But Dynex has a pretty ingenious solution up their sleeve: storage rent.
Storage rent, I've never heard of that one before.
It's a way to ensure the long-term sustainability of the network. You see, the Dynex blockchain keeps track of all transactions and data, kind of like a giant memory bank.
Right, it's called the blockchain state.
Exactly. Now, if a piece of data sits in that state for a long period, let's say 4 years, without being used, miners can start charging a small fee to store it like a kind of rent. This does a few important things. First, it prevents the blockchain from becoming bloated with useless data. Second, it provides a way for miners to continue earning DNX even after all the initial tokens have been mined. And third, it helps to regulate the supply of DNX, preventing deflation and keeping the ecosystem stable.
That's actually really clever. It's like a self-cleaning oven for the blockchain.
Exactly. It keeps things running smoothly and ensures that there's always an incentive to maintain the network.
Cool.
But let's zoom out for a second. This is all very impressive from a technical and economic standpoint. But what does it actually mean for the average person?
That's the question, isn't it? How does all of this translate to tangible benefits in our everyday lives?
Well, imagine a world where your doctor could use Dynex-powered AI to create a hyper-personalized treatment plan tailored to your unique genetic makeup. No more one-size-fits-all medicine.
Okay, now that's something I can get behind. Personalized medicine has always felt like the future of healthcare. But what about other areas? What else could Dynex revolutionize?
Let's talk about transportation. Picture a world with self-driving cars that are so advanced and responsive thanks to neuromorphic computing that they can navigate even the most chaotic traffic with ease, fewer accidents, less congestion, and maybe even shorter commutes.
Okay, sign me up for that driverless car. This is starting to sound like a real game changer. But it's not just about making our lives easier, is it? This technology has a potential to unlock some incredible scientific breakthroughs as well.
Absolutely. Right now, we're limited by the sheer processing power required to simulate really complex systems like the human brain or the Earth's climate. And neuromorphic computing could blow those limitations wide open, paving the way for incredible advancements in fields like medicine, climate science, materials science, and you name it.
It's like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of scientific discovery.
Precisely. And the most exciting part is that Dynex is committed to making this technology accessible to everyone. They envision a future where neuromorphic computing power isn't confined to massive data centers, but is distributed across a vast network of smaller, more efficient devices.
So instead of relying on a handful of tech giants, we could have a more democratic, decentralized approach to supercomputing.
That's the idea. It's about putting this incredible power into the hands of researchers, entrepreneurs, and everyday people, sparking a wave of innovation that could truly change the world as we know it.
Well, I think it's safe to say that our minds have been thoroughly blown today. We've covered a lot of ground, from the intricate workings of memristors to a potential future powered by neuromorphic computing.
It's been an incredible journey, and this is just the beginning. Dynex is constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this technology.
And we'll be here to cover every exciting development along the way. But before we wrap up, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on neuromorphic computing? What excites you the most about this technology? What concerns you?
Drop a comment below, and let's continue the conversation. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next deep dive into the world of cutting-edge science and technology.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you in the next one.